Hey everybody, I'm Eric Weiner with Hagerty. I'm here with Alan Squindo, COO of RM Sotheby's, and we're here to take you through some of the greatest cars from the Elkhart collection, which is going up for sale in early May. There's some unbelievable stuff in this room. We're not even going to get close to get to it, but we wanted to pull out some of the favorites that we had, and if you see anything really interesting to you, definitely point it out in the comments. So I thought we'd maybe start here, Alan, with the 1955 Hudson Italia.
Sure, it's one of the highlights of the collection. It really is a concours car through and through. You'll rarely see one, only about 25 were ever made. And I think what's special about it is that it's really a early version of a hybrid, really. It's an American chassis, American power plant, but Italian coachwork. So this is nothing short of a show car.
Yeah, I heard it was built on a Hudson Jet, and I know it uses the Superleggera bodywork with the aluminum bonding. Super interesting, obviously crazy sort of jet age design.
And you know, it's as we talked about earlier, it's really special because this is one of all the cars that are selling without reserve. So not only is it rare to see a car, one of 25 ever built, you rarely see one really aside from a show field, but it's also selling to the highest bidder, which is pretty special.
Yeah, and I know it's a really great restoration as well. The condition of it is really, really fantastic. And there's so many like interesting little design quirks on this car.
It really speaks to the era when you consider, obviously, cars of that time, the big fin Cadillacs, Lincolns, Lincoln Indianapolis kind of springs to mind. All the little design features, the use of chrome, the jet age styling, it's really, really very special car, and I think a bellwether for things to come.
Yeah, and obviously it was still pretty tough for them to sell them at the time. I know they only made so few of them, and AMC kind of took over the company midway through the sales and sort of pulled the plug pretty soon.
It seems like design projects of this kind are rarely financially savvy for the car companies, and production's low, they're painfully expensive to build, and correspondingly the price point for the buyer at the time was massive. So this is the kind of car you might have seen Hollywood royalty driving around.
Right,
and
right.
It's really special to see one.
Yeah, the interior is super interesting. Kind of strange design quirks. You can only get to the trunk through the interior.
Absolutely, it is spectacular. This is a full nut and bolt show quality restoration, really done to the highest standard. The panel fit, the chrome work, everything is period correct and as it should be. So definitely a highlight for us in the Elkhart collection for us.
Yeah, I love some of these individual design features like the chrome on the rear fender down here. You just don't really see stuff like that today. So maybe we can move on here. Next car.
Sure, something completely different for us, but something that really came strong into the market, as you know, a few years ago, Toyota 2000 GT. Nothing short of a supercar. I think in a lot of ways, as we were talking about, this is really the car that signaled the arrival of the Japanese supercar to this market.
Yep, and certainly this was the car that made everybody in the world pay attention to Japanese manufacturers. People probably thought these were the kind of companies that only made family cars and nothing nearly this exciting.
So this is a left-hand drive car. Obviously, a lot of them are right-hand drive cars given the market. You've got if you take a look at the interior as well, you've got a joint venture with Yamaha, who built the dashboard wood. Very low-slung car, extremely high revving, tremendously fast. I've never driven one, but I'm told they're an absolute blast to drive, and I think production's pretty low too, so you don't see them every day really.
Yep, and you got a super smooth straight six with it. I love the body-mounted mirrors. It's just got some exceptionally great details, and I love the spec here with the black over red.
It's a true sports car. Only about 350 were built. We've sold them at our auctions many times before, and this is a particularly good example. As I say, left-hand drive, great colors, and it's, as you can see, it's been in climate-controlled storage and really well looked after. The cars, as with the Hudson, are on the button. They fire up, ready to go, and an absolute blast to drive.
And what do you think these might go for, the Hudson?
In the case of the Hudson, perhaps north of $350,000. This case, substantially higher, perhaps twice that. But as we say, these are without reserve, and they'll sell to the highest bidder, which attracts a lot of attention. So on May 1st, it'll be really exciting to see what they both do.
Nice. So obviously some really, really great stuff in the background here that I almost feel horribly guilty about skipping over with a Isetta and a XKSS and a Fiat 8V Supersonic, but one of the highlights of this collection that absolutely should not be skipped is this 1952 Ferrari 225S Berlinetta by Vignale.
An incredible car. It's one of the highlights of the collection, no doubt about it. This is from a time when Ferrari was building very limited production cars, of course, truly coach-built bespoke cars, and really a very heavy focus on competition as well. This is one of less than half a dozen that were built with the Tuboscoca competition-oriented chassis. And it's also a very, very eligible car for events because it did a lot of them in period. So
yeah, I know this car has a really fascinating race history.
incredible race history. Yeah, it did the Emilia Million period in '52 when it was effectively a new car. It raced at Monaco. It did 12 hours at Casablanca, I believe. So really, really incredible race history. And in the case of the Emilia, that obviously makes it eligible for the current running of the race. So it's a really terrific example of the breed. Classic Ferrari V12 in the front where it should be.
Yep.
And it's very competition oriented, right-hand drive.
Yep.
Just I believe they're Vignale bodied.
Yep. And I know it's a smaller V12 compared to some of the later 3-liters. This is, I think it's a 2.7. I love the wheels too. The wire wheels are absolutely beautiful. These 50s Ferrari cars, especially the early ones, which kind of sort of resemble the earlier Cisitalias, are just gorgeous. And the scale in person, they're surprisingly compact. I mean, the footprint really is not that big at all.
Yeah, and if you consider for a minute, what Ferrari is like these days and the thousands of cars that are built, all at a very high level, of course, this is a time when Ferrari is still in its infancy. The company is less than a decade old, and it's really building cars by hand. No two are really truly identically alike. Outside coach builder, in this case, Vignale, builds this beautiful body. And in this collection, it's really been heavily used as an event car, very successfully used as an event car. Went back to Monaco in particular. These cars are very well documented. Our experts have been poring over it, analyzing the numbers, the gearbox, the body, the engine, and so forth. And yeah, as you would expect, it's a highlight in this collection.
Yeah, I imagine it at full chat around the track. This would be pretty nice sound.
It is. It is.
So cool. Maybe we can kind of move along here. There's obviously some super interesting stuff here. I think that Cooper Jaguar is probably a pretty great highlight too, but much later in the Italian lineage, with a sprinkle of American in there, is this Alfa Romeo TZ3 by Zagato.
It's interesting you should say lineage, absolutely, because the principles are kind of the same. This is really a coach-built car in the same spirit. It's consider the Chrysler partnership. It's American underpinnings. It's effectively Dodge Viper underpinnings, but fully coach-built by Zagato. Very, very limited production. No different than taking a Ferrari chassis and putting that beautiful Vignale body on it. It's really, really a stunning car.
Yep.
And a lot of power to boot too.
Yeah, I think it's about 600 horsepower. You got a big old 8.4 liter engine, and the details on this car are exceptionally great. I love sort of very low front end. The interior, very familiar to anyone who's ever been inside a modern Viper, but outside, I mean, it literally looks nothing like a Viper. It's pure Zagato design, and I think only 9 of them were built.
Right, and as a TZ3, it really is an incredible successor to what that TZ lineage is at Alfa. There's a lot of design cues, from the wheel treatment to that camback style. It's really stunning, and in terms of from a design standpoint, that Z on the fender really tells you everything. I think there's really not a more stunning coach builder and design house. But as all the cars in the collection, fires up and has been incredibly well maintained, virtually delivery mileage, so it's effectively a brand new TZ3.
Wow. And I know the body obviously very beautiful, but absolutely functional too. I know it's all carbon fiber body, and Zagato has been at it a long time and still doing a great job. This one's a 2010, so obviously just about 10 years old. But
right.
What do you think this one might go for?
We're estimating currently about $500,000.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And that Ferrari back there?
North of $2.5 million.
Gotcha. So that's got to be one of the marquee cars of the collection.
Exactly. Of about 230 or so cars, that Ferrari in particular is a very big highlight. And as you can see around the building, as we announce more cars, we have a lot of interesting categories, a lot of unusual things, micro cars, British cars of every sort, and also spanning the years as we have been now. Mid-50s sports racer, an American classic, Japanese supercar, and then modern supercars too.
Yeah, you rarely see a collector with like this much variety. I mean, it's somebody who clearly just loves cars.
Exactly. The depth and breadth of this offering is really amazingly complete. It's really comprehensive.
So definitely moving on here to the XJ220.
Personal favorite of mine as well.
Oh yeah?
Great colors. This one is really particularly good. Obviously low mileage, iconic color combination, but any Achilles heel for these cars are sorted on this one. This one's going to have new tires for the sale as well, and it's also got its fuel system sorted as well. So it's in North America, if you consider how many XJ220s are stateside, it'd be very, very rare, if not impossible, to find one that is this turnkey.
Yeah, and everybody knows the McLaren F1, which came just a little bit after this, but when this car came out, it was the fastest car in the world.
Exactly, and its performance is still pretty stunning today. But that's also, I think, what's impressive about this collection is that both of these cars, all the cars we've looked at really, yes, it's climate controlled, yes, there's a lot of them in here, but they are very well taken care of, exercised regularly and as needed, and only in fair weather. So really, these are cars that are meant to do what they're here for, which is to be driven and enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, these are exceptionally cool. I love, the history of these cars in the early 1990s. It's supposed to be designed, or initially with a mid-engine V12, but later switched in the development process to a twin-turbo V6. These cars absolutely look, even now, like they're from 50 years in the future. Super, super cool.
Very timeless design, no doubt about it. And low production, too.
Yeah, you don't see these very often. And then obviously one of the kind of darlings of modern collectibles with the 2005-2006 Ford GT. I think this is a 2006 Heritage Edition.
Yeah, it really ticks every box in that respect. So Heritage color scheme, it's a 4-option car, meaning the wheels, the sound system, and so forth. Also, interestingly, that number.
99, yeah.
It's a reference to Wayne Gretzky, who was its first custodian, caretaker, owner. And it's a reference to him, and we have all that wonderful documentation on file as well, as we do for the Ferrari, the Hudson, and so forth. Documentation is critical as you size these cars up. So this one really wants nothing. I think it satisfies everything that a Ford GT potential buyer will be looking for, including interesting history.
Yeah, I love the Gulf livery. Obviously, when these fire up, that 5.4 liter V8 sounds pretty excellent.
I think in modern supercars, everyone would agree there are few experiences that are as perfect as this one. The design is great. It's a very visceral driving experience. They sound fantastic. And as you pointed out, they're kind of the darlings of the industry at this point and highly sought after.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Saw a huge variety of cars here. I want to say thanks again to Alan and RM Sotheby's for having us out here. We're going to have some future content and some articles on these cars, so stay tuned to Hagerty, and thanks for joining us.